And we're back. Mike Cernovich, Gorilla Mindset, Danger in Play. And whew, it is a humid one today. See, especially since I've been growing out the hair. So we're going to do 10 biggest thinking errors I made. And I think I have more than 10. So let's just rattle them off and we're going to see what we come up with. So if I break eye contact, it's because I'm looking at the computer screen. So number one would be getting into any kind of a scene, orthodoxy, dogma. Fitness is really what I have in mind, but it applies to any scene I've ever been in. All right, so here's an example. If you're real big into if you get the bodybuilding scene or the fitness scene, they're going to tell you, fructose is going to make you fat, and if you eat fruit, you're going to get fat and diabetes, right? And everybody just accepts it as true. Meanwhile, they advocate drinking chocolate milk, which boosts your insulin levels. They advocate, all these weird carb polymers and shit, the most weird exotic things, take massive amounts of anabolic steroids, and you're just like, well, that's weird. And I used to believe that. But then you get out there, you realize there's a group of people called high carb, low fat, raw vegans, also fruitarians. All they eat is fruit. That's it. And if you look at them, the biggest criticism people have about them is they'll say, well, look at these, skinny vegan pussies. It's like, okay, well, if they're skinny vegan, and that's where also a scene comes in. Well, why do you call them a skinny vegan pussy? That's because you're in your own scene, right? You're a what? Cool alpha fitness bro, Who cares? Whatever. They're doing their thing. Fuck, who cares? I don't care. But if they're thin and they're skinny vegan pussies, but they eat all that fruit, but wait, fruit makes you fat, fructose will give you diabetes, but right, it doesn't add up. But when you're in a scene like that, you're gonna just come up with things that don't make sense because you're not logical, you're not thinking critically or for yourself. And it's been like that in every part of every scene that I've ever been into. The whole men on the internet, they talk about all day, the system's oppressing you and everything. It's like, well, yeah, I know, but the system has always oppressed you. It's always oppressed men. It's always oppressed women, what have you. It's important to understand the system and to understand the forces at work. I mean, in fact, you have to understand it because that's the only way to survive these days. I would have been in jail just because of things I wrote on the internet because people lied about me and called the police on me because they didn't like what I was saying. And I live in America, right? In the UK, there are hate crime laws. If you're a man, you can be falsely accused of rape. You need to know these things. And you should, where possible, speak up and advocate for change. But that's just like the battle conditions. You still have to view yourself as a soldier and think, well, how am I going to survive the battlefield? Right? Ultimately, that's what you got to do. So that's why I'm in my own little, my own kind of little world. It's like, yeah, I recognize these problems, red alert, keep aware. But my main focus is, mindset and how can you get what you want out of life. But that is not what a lot of people want. A lot of people, they want to hear 5 reasons feminists have ruined your life. Well, that's the scene, right? I don't like scenes. And once you get in one, you start to, internalize it. But you realize, are feminists really the enemy? Are feminists the one who made you take out student loans and buy a house and live a consumerism lifestyle? Think bigger, right? That's why when people try to pin down my views, I always tell them, good luck. Most people have no idea what my views are, political views, and that's for a reason. Other than that I'm pro-free speech, pro-gun, and I'm pro kind of, rugged individualism, living life on your terms. You don't know what I think about anything. And that's the way it should be because I don't want to start my own scene. Okay, you're part of my little cult now, and here are the rules, and here's how you're going to live your life. Because then we're going to have our own fucking dumb shit dogma that may or may not work for you. An example is, I use this often. So my skin's looking better. It was real bad 3 years ago. I gave myself a skin condition because for 2 reasons. One is because all I cared about was macros, protein, carbohydrates, fat. I didn't understand plants had nutrients. Well, why didn't I understand it? Well, because of fitness, And fitness, if you eat a fucking apple, you're going to blow up and get fat. Even though an apple only has 5 grams of fructose in it, your body can process 75 grams easily. So when you really delve deep into it, it doesn't make sense. But you're like, well, you want me to drink juice? That'll spike my blood sugar. I'll get diabetes. And you're like, well, why do you think this? Why do you? Because you're in a scene, right? And you can see it so much that even smart people in fitness. There's a guy, Alan Argonon, and he wrote an article anti-green juicing. And he goes, well, you can't drink green juice because it'll spike your blood sugar and give you, sugar rushes. Okay, well, what is a green juice? I don't put much fruit in them, right? It's usually kale, celery, cucumber, lemon, half an apple or an apple, okay? What is that really going to do to your blood sugar, right? But even though he's a relatively intelligent guy, he is so deep in the fitness scene that he doesn't realize what a fucking idiot he is when he talks about it. And that's common of everybody. So avoid scenes, avoid that dogma, or you'll make major thinking errors, embarrassing ones even. The next one is, well, yeah, and this kind of goes along with fitness. I used to think those scientific references at the end of an article meant something. It doesn't mean anything for two reasons. One is that for something to work, there's what has to be called a minimum effective dose. So testosterone, will that work? If you shoot testosterone in your arms, will it work? Well, how much, right? You have to, if you just shoot 25 milligrams of testosterone a week, it actually will do more harm than good because it might shut your body's natural production down. And if the 25 milligrams a week happens to put you at a lower level than you had naturally, it's bad. But you could say, take testosterone and you give a reference. Testosterone is good. But if you actually go pull the study up, you'll find out, well, no, the subjects were using 150 to 200 milligrams of testosterone a week. But the stuff I'm selling is 25 milligrams a week, right? That's what they do with all these supplements. They'll say, oh, yeah, this compound, have these amazing properties. Well, okay, but what dose did they use, and how would you get that same dose in humans? And when you do that, you realize it's an order of magnitude less than what you would really need. So that was another thinking mistake. It's like, oh, yeah, this is scientific. It's not. And then kind of like part B to that would be a lot of science is fabricated, a lot of it's fraud, a lot of it isn't replicable. So I don't really trust that much science at all. Next one is refusing to learn from my enemies. And this relates back to, again, getting into a scene, right? Okay, if you're a vegan, okay, why would I hate you? Even, they're vegans, they troll people, and, I get that, but I don't, just like I don't hate the kind of like roast gym guys, why would I hate vegans? But I used to have this mindset, well, they're vegans, or, those guys are like fitness douches, or, oh, those are this, or these are feminists, these are that. And, we all use labels, of course, but I can still learn from people. There's, for example, a social justice warrior out there named John Scalzi, and he's pretty much a piece of shit, but I've learned a lot from him about like audience engagement. And even though he's a sci-fi writer, you know what he does? He just writes about his life, and that makes people like him more. And if people like you, they're going to buy your book, right? So you have to open yourself up and share your life. So even though Scalzi is basically a piece of shit, if he could, he would have me arrested and thrown in jail. Okay, that doesn't mean I can't check out his website and say, oh, okay, what is this guy doing? And there's actually been times where I'd learn a new concept and I would Google it and his blog would turn up. For example, if you Google the 1,000 true fans rule, Scalzi's blog will turn up. And he actually makes a really intelligent analysis of, well, how many true fans do you really need to make your living as a writer? Is it really 1,000? Is it more? So, yeah, I don't have to like you to learn from you. It doesn't mean anything to me. My personal view of you is different than my intellectual view of you. And it should be that same way with everything, Unless you're in a cult, again, because you're in a scene, like the social justice warriors, if they read Gorilla Mindset, I've always said it, I'll send them a copy if they'll read it. If they read it, they just couldn't hate me anymore because they wouldn't think the way they think. They would unravel their negative thought processes. But they're just, they wouldn't even read it because I post tweets, That's because they're in a scene. You don't ever want to be like that, guys. And we all, from time to time, drift into scenes. I've been in them, and I do my best kind of to keep out of it. But that's another thinking error I've made is, I'm going to call this number 4, believing you're more self-aware than you are. We all think we're self-aware, but the hardest person to ever truly get to know is yourself. We are, we're not aware of everything we do, and we have this delusion that like, well, yeah, I don't believe in scenes anymore because I want to be a big thinker. Well, I'm probably, if you analyze my conduct, though, you could probably say, well, I mean, you kind of are in a little scene. You're the sort of the anti-SJW scene, and your subculture does tend to have little, behaviors, and we're not that aware of ourselves as much as we like. And if you really want an example of that, look at your age, gender, and income. If you give that to a marketer, someone like me, I can tell better than 50-50, so better than a coin flip. The clothes you wear, where you shop. If you're going to buy a new watch, I can tell you, okay, Michael Kors, right? Well, because that's your income bracket. You're a man, you're going to buy a new watch. I know it'll be like Michael Kors, maybe Calvin Klein, maybe Guess, right? So you're not that unique, because a marketer could just say, well, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you where you shop. Me, I wear New Balance, right? You could just figure that out without, well, okay, he's a white male, makes X amount of money, maybe he wears Vibrams, maybe he wears New Balance, but you're gonna be able to plot me, right, with a pretty good thing. So I might think, well, yeah, I'm not part of any scene. I'm Mr. Individuality. We're not as self-aware as we think. And when you think you're real self-aware, that's when you have blind spots and you make real bad mistakes. So get over ourselves, or at least I'll get over myself. You do what you do. The next one would be not looking at art, and that's kind of down. Okay, so I used to be, you read books, nonfiction, because we want to be real smart. Don't you like how I say real smart? Do you like my colloquialisms, by the way? Homespun, right? Meta. Homespun. That's another thinking error, is that you want to sound really intelligent. Well, maybe I want to say real intelligent. Maybe I say probably, right? Little things like that can make you relatable. So if you're actually real smart, maybe you throw in a little bit of that, right? Kind of hide it. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe that's the thinking error you make, is that you want to use those big words. I don't use big words. I don't worry about my vernacular and lexicon. Probably. So yeah, I used to think, the real smart guys, we would just read the nonfiction books because we're fucking smart. But when you really start to look at art, it reflects back on your unconscious mind. And I didn't realize at the time, I kind of reversed analyzed it. I was just like, well, why would it, I started going to museums. I'm like, well, why does this piece compel me, And then looking back, I realized, at the time, I remember this, I was at a museum in Seattle. And I went, whenever I do, I'd go pull up my Yelp app, and Yelp. That's another thing. We're not that unique. I bet you if you have an iPhone, you probably have Yelp, right? Probably tell you what apps you have. So I pull up my Yelp app and looked at museums. I went and found a local private collection. It was one of those real rich guys, and then they retire and leave their stuff to you. So I went, and I was drawn to this picture, like guy in a boat in stormy waters, and I just, why? Why? And I kept thinking, and then I wrote, and I wish I had saved it. Now, at the time, I was in an stormy place in my life where I wanted to go, and that was like telling me, okay. Then you learn how to listen to it. So lately, I've been going to all the museums in Paris, and I'm seeing like countrysides and big green lush areas. Why am I drawn to it? Well, probably because maybe that's where I need to go live. Maybe I've lived in a city long enough. Maybe it's time to just get out into the country and these big open surfaces. Maybe I disappear from the internet for a while. But I'm thinking about this now. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but there's a message there, and I know now to listen to that. There's something deep inside me, and whenever something makes you brace yourself, think about that, and that's the value of art. Next point would be, thinking too quickly / not pausing before I apply. So you read something right away, you got to respond. Just relax, take a breath. Because a lot of times the sentence is ambiguous, or a lot of times what you read is based more on like your mood. Is that guy attacking me? Well, maybe if you feel defensive, you're going to view it as an attack, right? And there have been many times where I just fly off the handle about something that I misinterpreted, and I misinterpreted it because my own emotions caused me to read something that wasn't actually there. So remember, and that could be a thinking error in itself, be aware that you're going to impose your reality onto what you see, what you hear, what you read. And that leads to a thinking error. So if you really want to reply, well, why do you want to reply so fast, right? Kind of like, why do you got to reply right now? Well, because you think, somebody's after you or, whatever. Just breathe, think, what's really going on here? And then a lot of times what happens is you just don't even, reply. And I've gotten a lot better at this. So I only reply to like negative stuff or hater stuff as a strategic point because people like to watch a fight. I'll give them a fight. But I used to, if somebody wrote a snarky comment on a blog, I'd want to like reply and really correct that person or internet forums. And I realized that was just my own, anger, fear, insecurity, call it what you will, status obsession that was making me really want to reply. Now, when I read comments, I'm just like, okay, delete. I don't even care because once you pause and think and interpret, it's no big deal. Next point would be, and this is kind of a thinking error, kind of like a life tip. You got to realize a lot of the people on the internet are mentally ill or they're drunk. And that is why when you read things, they don't make sense or maybe why they get in your head. It's like you're talking to a mentally ill person. So don't think that, because it's a thinking error to think that you're talking to rational people and that you're going to be able to persuade them. But there's a lot of mental illness in the world. Some people estimate up to 10% of people in the U.S. have some kind of mental illness. So if you think you're going to persuade mentally ill people to see the world in a rational view, then you're not going to. And then, of course, that presupposes that your view is true, which could itself be, another thinking error. As you can see, this stuff is all tied together. The next thinking error I would do is I would really focus my energy and thinking on motivation. So if you told me, I'm going to donate a bunch of money to charity, I would be more worried about, well, is this a marketing ploy or what's this real angle here? You can't read another person's head. Everybody's selfish. Like Thomas Hobbes said, everybody's selfish. Well, maybe, but who cares? If the outcome is good, then why do you care what the motivation is for, right? And I even get that from guys too, that, when I did I said, if you bought a book, a vet who needs a book, because I think 19 veterans kill themselves every day, And I know veterans resonate with Guerrilla Mindset. I said, if you buy a copy of Guerrilla Mindset for yourself or you already have bought one, just send us an email and we'll get one out to a vet. No big deal. Some people are like, well, that's marketing. Well, does it matter, right? Does it really matter? Why do you care? And the answer is it's not marketing, but maybe it is. Who cares, right? Why would you care and obsess over what the motivations are? Why don't you just go send books to people, right? And I used to be a little shithead like that too. Well, and then I just asked myself, well, if you're worried about this guy's giving money for the wrong reasons, why don't you just go fucking give your money, tough guy, right? And then I realized, like, yeah, you're kind of a piece of shit, That isn't the right way to go about things. You need to worry about what the fuck you're doing. If other people are doing things for the world that have a good outcome, or at least they're trying, then, maybe shut the fuck up and worry about what you can do, Which probably is another thinking error. Not thinking enough about what I'm doing and worrying about what everybody else is doing. So waste your thinking process. Worry about you. What the fuck are you doing? You do you, I'll do me. Stay in your lanes. Another point would be focusing on the wrong things. So it used to be if I read an article, and especially as I was younger, I think a lot of this is a very male trait, and it has to do with how mature you become as a man. So I wouldn't even say it's age-wise, but as your masculinity becomes more self-possessed and more integrated, then I can read an article I disagree with and say, but that's a good point. Whereas I used to read an article I agreed with 90% of, but boy, that 10% I'm going to go impose my will. Well, why care about the 10% that I don't agree with, There was 90% of it was good, but as a man, you're like, and I see that too in you guys, and that's why I am not as cranky as I could be. But it is annoying. It's like, okay, so you read a whole article. Sometimes my articles are 2,000 words, and there was a sentence, one sentence, less than 1% of this article, and that's what you want to talk about, right? And then you realize why you're doing that. It's a status play. You want to challenge, and feel like you can raise your status by proving someone wrong. And sure, but is that really, it goes back to what do you really want to do, I want to learn about life, right? I want to live a good life, like Aristotle would say. I want to learn what I can learn. And I don't need to Well, I probably still do, but less than I used to. I don't need to impose my will on you and show you how wrong you are and how right I am. I'm more about like, well, yeah, even if a guy's full of shit, I can say, well, yeah, that's actually 1 out of the 10 points is pretty good, And I'm not going to focus on the 9 out of 10 I agree with, which again is a complete reversal because used to be if you could write a really, really, really good article, but boy, there's one thing wrong with it. I'm going to let you know. Not a very good use of your mindset. Next point would be believing truth is universal. Some truth like gravity, universal. Something, if everybody jumps off a building, we're all going to meet the ground. But people, your bodies are different, your thoughts are different. What works for you might not work for me. So the idea that, that's why I even tell you not everything I say is going to be true to you. People are like, well, how can you say that? Or people are like, well, Mike, you said this and it didn't work. And I'm like, well, did you find something that did work? Well, yeah, of course. I don't say, if you read Gorilla Mindset, everything in there will be true for you. And that annoyed people. People are like, well, you wrote this book and you said, not everything will be true. So I was like confused. Like, well, it just open your mind, right? Open your mind because what's true for you might not be true for me. I mean, for example, some people lose their hair while on testosterone replacement therapy, I'm off now, but I was on for, 3 years or something. I haven't lost any hair. Why not? You're supposed to lose your hair. Well, I don't take Propecia, right? That's just a little kind of dumb example, trivial, right? But that's to show you that's everywhere in your life. What works for you might not work for me. Truth is not universal, except maybe, engineering, right? Physics, that sort of thing. But in terms of how you relate to other people, how you learn, how you grow as a person, truth isn't universal. So instead of saying, well, fucking Buddhist philosophy is garbage, and, well, again, it goes back to why I care, the law of reflection. What is bothering you about that, right? Why is that upsetting you? Why does it upset you if people are Buddhists or vegans or power lifters, or why do you care if they're fat? Why do you care about that? Again, self-awareness, right? We're not that aware of ourselves, but for some reason it's causing our own unconscious minds, much like when you look at art. Well, why? Why care? Maybe that's true for him. Maybe his search is for something different than your search is, right? Maybe Buddhist is true for him because he wants inner peace and serenity, and that's how he's found it. So who are you to tell him that he's wrong? If there's a God, God will judge him. The rest of us, we need to worry about ourselves. Next one, I think I'm way over 10, and we're at 22 minutes, so I'll just say not understanding the power of cognitive bias is like anchoring and framing. Anchoring and framing. Framing is, well, the classic example, and you can read these from Dan Kahneman. You can watch his lectures on YouTube. You can read his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And you can read his book on cognitive biases, psychology of judgment and decision making. Use those kind of terms. Here's the idea. So if you tell me, Mike, I need your advice. And I'm like, sure. I give you my advice. And you go, okay. I can't decide if I should do it or not. I'm going to say, this has a 20% chance of killing you. Oh. Okay. What if I say this has an 80% chance of not killing you? Or of saving you, right? 80-20, right? 90-10. 95-5. So even if there's something like in medical procedures, this has a 99% chance of not killing you, right? Of saving your life, actually. But you have a 1% chance of dying. If you tell someone you have a 1% chance of dying, you framed the statistics in a certain way that they're going to focus on that 1%, like, oh, fuck. Whereas 1%, is low. So you frame it as, well, focus on the 99%. And you don't realize there's framing all around you. The way prices are framed, the way things are priced. You can see them like the internet marketing thing. So they'll say, and anchoring is kind of attached that way too, is if you create a really high anchor point, then you can sell a product for more than maybe people would otherwise. So if I wanted to do Gorilla Mindset internet marketing style, I would release a course. And I said, okay, this book took me 10,000 hours of life to work, and I charge, $500 an hour, so that's $5 million, and then I cross it off because now I've anchored it. And that might be, a little absurd. You got to be a little careful, but I would just cross it out. $5 million worth of knowledge. How much is that worth? $497. But you know what? I want everybody to be able to afford this. So I'm going to sell the Gorilla Mindset book. And I would just market it as a course too, because that's another sort of marketing trick, right? 10 modules. Here's a book. What is there? 12 chapters in Gorilla Mindset. Something like, here's 12 modules in Gorilla University. And then I would sell it to you for $97 because I would say, this is $5 million. Most people would charge $1,500 for this. I was going to charge $500, but then I decided that I wanted everybody to afford this. So I'm going to charge $97. Most people are like, if I try to charge $97 for just a book, right? Because the anchor point for a book is what? Well, the market. Kindle books are going to be usually, $9.99 to $12.99. And paperback books are going to be generally, $15 to $20. Hardback books, $17.50 or $20, $25. That's the anchor point. But if I reframe it, the power of framing, right? Because I'm selling the same thing, but I've reframed the book as a course with modules. And I've anchored it to college courses, to MBAs, right? I can say, if how many hours would you have to talk to a therapist for this, right? There's all these ways to anchor it. And I didn't realize it at the time, and that's how people kind of play marketing games with you. And so that's probably why I don't play those same games as everyone else. I'm just sort of like, here's the book. There's a Kindle book for $9. There is a paperback book for $15, and there's an audiobook for $15. Buy it or don't buy it, right? But if you really want to play the marketing games, you want to look at framing and you want to look at anchoring. And you want to anchor something to a very high price point. All right, I think that's 10. I think that's way more than 10. So we're over-delivering, right? We're delivering more value than promised. Let me know, what's the biggest thinking mistake that you made in your life? Could be big, could be small, but when did you think that you knew something that turned out to be wrong? Happens to all of us. What really changed your thought process or made you think more clearly? Let me know. And by the way, if you want to change your own thought processes, you can always check out Gorilla Mindset. So I will talk to you soon. Maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow.